I hope you all had a great day and enjoyed your day and festivities, all of that good stuff. Welcome back to Health IQ. I'm Rashad Milligan. I'm joined by two very special guests tonight. We have all the way, by the way, of educated in the state of Alabama, Dr. Katarena Ford. Doc, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
No problem, no problem. And as always, my good friend by this point, the president of the Atlanta NAACP, Mr. Richard Rose. Richard, tax day is over. How are you feeling? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I am feeling relieved. It was a tough day, but it's over for another 364 days, so I'm good.
I heard it. Well, without further ado, let's get into it. As we've been kind of discussing over the past few weeks on Health IQ, we're talking about trusted voices and establishing new relationships with Black healthcare professionals and everything like that. So my first question to you all is, what is the role of vaccinations in the community?
So let's let Dr. Ford handle that one first.
Yeah, definitely. So vaccinations play a significant role in community immunity, right? We've all heard of herd immunity, but we all want to get our own communities vaccinated, right? It protects everyone, and germs travel really quickly. I feel like if COVID taught us nothing else, it taught us about cleanliness and how fast germs can spread, considering that we went to a national outbreak. But vaccinations play a huge role because we need to protect people of color, one, that are at higher risk of metabolic syndromes such as diabetes and obesity. And in order to protect them, we have to be vaccinated so that they can live on.
Yeah, so you're right. And we have to realize that our bodies get accustomed to the certain bacteria that may be in our local area. So if we go to Brazil or somewhere, we may be affected adversely by bacteria that exist that Brazilians don't have become immune to it. So immunity keeps us long and healthy life. And so when something different like the coronavirus comes into play, we need to figure out a way to better protect ourselves. And I think, the scientific community has done just that. And I am grateful for it. And I can speak for our community. We are indeed grateful for this vaccine that has helped to immunize much of the population and then protect some others. Even if they contract the coronavirus, they live to tell about it.
Right. Now, even surviving coronavirus and surviving COVID and everything like that, just in general, Dr. Ford, starting off with you, how did you feel when there was no vaccine versus now when there is a vaccine available?
So I was fortunate enough to stay in the house. I worked from home, so it limited my outings to groceries and gas. But being overweight put me at a higher risk of like severe COVID and hospitalization. So I was terrified when COVID first initially hit the United States. However, once the vaccine was made available, I was happy to be vaccinated. I was ready to be like first in line. I felt like I could like breathe again after I had the vaccine, considering that I didn't have like a pod. A lot of people had pods during the pandemic. I was in a new city, no family, no friends. So it was just me for almost a year. So the vaccine really got my sanity back in a sense.
Yeah, so it was great for me as well. I don't have much of the comorbidities, but I am an asthmatic. And so anytime you talk about breathing problems, pollen bothers me on occasion. I've never been able to be around smokers. And so I was concerned and just very grateful that a vaccine was available and was urgent, wanted to get in line, one of the first in lines as well.
And Dr. Ford, even just playing off of that, when you said you were one of the first in line, I know a lot of people, particularly in the Black community, they were / still are hesitant to get the vaccine. I guess just for you, where did that trust come in for you? Who did you kind of lean on? Who did you listen to, and how did you trust to take it?
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate enough to work in the scientific community. And that kind of gave me a leg up. So knowing the chemical makeup of the vaccine or knowing the ingredients list helped me a lot because I was able to research every chemical compound of each vaccine, right? And these are available online. If you go to the FAQ sheets, you can see what's in them. But if you're not a scientist, it's probably really hard to digest. So, I went with what vaccine was best for my body type by going through the pros, the cons of what could potentially happen. And then also I confided in my primary care physician. We sat down, we debated because it was very early on. There was not a lot of information about it. We had the clinical trials, but it wasn't like a real world experiment where it was like in your face and you knew people who got vaccinated. So that gave me the trust that I needed because there is a lot of hesitancy, especially in the African American community, when it comes to trusting the medical field, not completely understand it. And I really hope that we are coming to a point where we can eradicate that. But it takes time. But my primary care physician, doing my own research, and then talking to some other scientists who also worked on the vaccine helped me make that decision.
And Dr. Ford, just to follow up on that as well, like I said in the intro, you're educated in Alabama and stuff throughout college. Montgomery, Auburn, right in that area is Tuskegee, like right in between kind of those two is Tuskegee. So I can only imagine because that's where every Black person, the first thing they went to was Tuskegee. So how are those people, like if like some of your former students or anybody that you might keep in contact in that area, how have they kind of dealt with I guess initial hesitancy and how are they open to the vaccine today?
No, that's a really fair question. I'll start with Montgomery. A lot of the students or a lot of people that I used to work with or go to school with have called me, to give advice about the vaccine. And there was hesitancy before, and I completely understand it. And I try to just be an open ear and then also give them the facts that I've researched myself to help them make an informed decision for themselves. And I think, having these professional organizations step up and helping people get vaccinated is a major key, especially in those communities that is not as trusted or well known, right? But I can tell you every friend or every family member that has come to me for advice has gotten vaccinated. And then it's just spreading that information because if I get them vaccinated, they're going to go and get someone else vaccinated. And it's just a trickling effect. But it was hard at first, right? Because I got it very early on. No one believed me. They were like, we'll wait for a year, see what happens. And I think the numbers have shown that a lot of people did wait for some time. And now African Americans are getting vaccinated a lot more frequently.
So you don't, I guess you don't see a difference in between the rest of the country of how, Black people around the country have reacted to versus people directly in or near Tuskegee, Alabama?
Well, I'm not technically engulfed in Tuskegee specifically, so I haven't necessarily talked to anyone who has that history from like the Tuskegee Syphilis Project. So I'm not necessarily sure. I have worked a lot in Selma with a lot of people who are skeptical. But I think it was, going into the churches really helped. Having scientists there, having professional organizations there that they trust was very helpful. But I can't talk for Tuskegee specifically. I apologize.
It's fine. It's understandable. And I guess President Rose, just for you, what information helped you decide whether or not to get vaccinated? And I guess how long did it kind of take you? I know you said you were early in line once it was, officially kind of released to the public, but what was that information early on, even before it was, released, that I was like, all right, I'm gonna take it. I'm not gonna wait. I'm gonna take it.
Well, clearly, my being asthmatic, I was concerned about any disease that greatly affects breathing. Breathing is kind of essential to everyday life. And I would, as a child, I remember the polio vaccine where they brought it to school. At first, it was a shot, and then they developed a second vaccine, which was an oral vaccine. They put it on a sugar cube. So I was familiar with vaccines in general, and also had observed some kind of devastating effect that COVID-19 had on our community. We were watching the numbers at the NAACP early and looking at, we knew that Black funeral homes were, couldn't even make calls quick enough to remove dead bodies from hospitals and homes even. So I had that information, and so and also a member of our executive committee at Atlanta NAACP, which is our local board, was a trial participant. And so I did have that additional information, and because it was a blind trial, and it was after the end of the trial was when he found out he had actually been vaccinated. So all of those bits of information made it pretty easy for me. So let's try it. I was continuing to look and listen to the effects of it, and of course we know it was a trial and error. I had the confidence though that I watched other diseases come where the CDC was pretty active and pretty effective in dealing, like the Ebola virus, for example. And so I had that confidence, and the fact that it was a real risk to me as an asthmatic to get that disease. And I have somewhat of a public. I have to be in the public more than a lot of people. So all of those made it easy to say, hey, this is available, I'm going to get it.
Dr. Ford, I know you just said that, after speaking and sharing a lot of the research that you did yourself, that most of your friends and family received it back home and everything like that. So my next question to you is, how do you think on just a general level, the unveiling, the release of the COVID vaccinations have divided the country, if at all?
If you listen to media, they'll tell you it's all politics, right? And they'll tell you, depending on your political party, that's where you are. But actually being in the community and being able to, hear people, hear their concerns. I believe when the vaccine first rolled out, like we said, it was a lot of skepticism because of in the African-American community, we weren't treated fairly, especially in the medical field. And they had that hesitancy. So I had to understand their concerns, and especially with the pace of how the vaccines kind of rolled out with emergency authorization from the FDA. It was a lot to consider. So I do think that as time prevailed and there was like that real world experiment, if I can say, which more people getting vaccinated, you saw, okay, wow, they're out and about, they're doing fine. This person is close to me, they're okay, cool, I'll go for it. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily I feel like maybe a year ago, it felt like the country was divided. But I think in today's society, we are pretty solid when it comes to vaccination status. And I think that's just because people have started to see that, okay, I can go see my loved ones freely. I can travel with my COVID card. I can go into this restaurant as long as I have my COVID card. So I think more people are getting vaccinated, and I think that just took time. I mean, yes, there are some people who still do not have the vaccine. And I honestly could not tell you why, considering like President Rose said, like, we vaccinated our babies for centuries, right? Polio, measles, influenza, many more, like just to go to school. So I don't understand why this one's is different. But I do feel like we are really close to herd immunity.
And I guess to follow up on that, Dr. Ford, you mentioned earlier how, you didn't have a little pod for you in those early days of quarantine and everything like that. You're in a new state, a new area, away from all your loved ones. How did the pandemic really affect your mental health? And how does it still, I guess, continue to affect your mental health?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. For me personally, at first, I think we all felt like it was a little mini vacation. You get to stay at home. But then when you really found out this was serious, and like I said, I was in a new city and no friends, I gained a lot of weight, over 50 pounds. I mean, all I wanted to do was sleep and think about the next meal that I was going to cook. It was, and that I had to sit down and realize that I was depressed. So I did have to start seeing a therapist biweekly, which our company did offer that service throughout the pandemic, thankfully. And once I got vaccinated, I thought I was never going to kind of get out of that headspace. But I'm happy to be back on track. I've lost the weight that I gained during the pandemic. I'm more active in the community now, now that we have vaccines. Still wearing a mask, but others aren't as lucky as I was. We lost a lot of kids. We lost a lot of teenagers to suicide during the pandemic because of that lack of social interaction and being able to go to school and seeing their families. A lot of small businesses had to, close. So it was really hard to fathom and actually watch that happen. And I think it's definitely generated a lot of anxiety in the community.
And President Rose, just following up on that, same question to you. How has being in the pandemic, being in a time of quarantine, extended quarantine, affected your mental health?
Well, I think in my case, I've kind of seen a lot of stuff over the years, so I'm prepared for adversity probably more than young people. So and I just adjusted. We at first couldn't hold meetings again, face-to-face meeting, no church services and stuff. So, but the work of civil rights is still there, and in particular, in 2020 we had elections. So, we had to wear masks, we sanitized up, we carried bottle of sanitizing solution with us. We did all those other little things to kind of make sure we protect ourselves. But we had to get the vote out because life goes on, and that is that's my attitude, that's my focus, to see what I can do to better the community despite the obstacles I may face. So mine is, again, I've seen a few moons. I know that there's life at the end of the tunnel, and we're gonna get through it.
At what point were you like, I think we can get back outside. I think we'll be able to get back to normal life, President Rose?
Well, I don't think we will return to where we were in 2019. I think that the adjustments that we've had to make, virtual meetings and so forth, I think those will continue. I'm come from a culture where, you meet people and greet them and hug them. I think, I wonder when we'll get back to that. I think we kind of all want to be back there. But the survival at first was, the number one priority. How do we make it past this? Because we don't know where it's coming from. They didn't have a vaccine. They, all the speculation about where did the virus start. I was like, we're fine where it started, but let's figure out how to kill it and go on to the next thing. So that's just my general attitude. I'm a guy who's young. I knew the worst of civil rights, the colored only signs. And so where we are today is because it took some grit to get here, and it's going to take some grit to continue with our path forward.
Right, President Rose. And I guess just kind of even feeding off of that, I know Dr. Ford just said that she, once everything kind of opened back up and she was vaccinated, she lost all the weight from quarantine. I just wanted to ask you, how did, I guess, the pandemic and the restrictions or whatever, change your ways of thinking of personal health and the way you approach personal health?
Me or Dr. Ford?
Dr. Ford first.
Okay, sure.
Sorry. I don't think I would have honestly. Okay, I'm from the South. I'm from Alabama. I love pig feet, collard greens, egg bones. That, especially when you go to grandma's house, it's amazing. But throughout this, I learned that I needed to start eating clean, right? I need to start exercising more. Do we like to do it? No, but we're getting older and we have to protect ourselves and make sure that our immune systems are responsive if something like that were able to happen. And I can't tell you how many times I wash my hands a day. They're starting to feel like sandpaper, and that's okay because I'm clean. And I don't think I'll ever go back to not wearing a mask in public, if that makes sense, especially on transportation or public transportation or like in crowded areas. Outside, I'm cool. But I actually like the idea of a mask because I didn't get a cold. I didn't have a sniffle throughout, the entire pandemic, and should probably knock on wood. But yeah, that it's definitely changed my approach to health.
Yeah, I agree. I think parts of it will continue to affect our behavior in public. As she said, outside is fine, but in crowded spaces, I'm always thinking on a plane. Even they saying, "Hey, masks are not mandated." I'm mandating it. I'm because I have work to do.
Oh no, I mean that's a scary thought with the airports and travel lifting mask mandates, because you think, especially for you, President Rose, being in Atlanta, the world's busiest airport,
Right.
we're talking about thousands of people in the airport crammed in on the train to get to your terminal. You get to the terminal, so like even if you were, everybody was wearing, if one person didn't wear that mask, they had COVID, then they spread that to someone else and they get on a plane with you, and now you're on a plane with them for a couple hours to your next destination. So if that's a scary thought.
Yeah, it is indeed. And as I said, this will affect our behavior. How much and how long will be, is the question. But I think we are all more cognizant of the dangers that you just described, where we had not been. I mean, we were just willy-nilly floating around. But we learn, don't we?
Right. Another thing was through the pandemic for me was birthday cake. Like instead of the person blowing on the cake,
right.
waving over the cake until the candles went out. I was like, man, why didn't we do this all of our lives? We just had like 2-year-olds like spitting on it, and we just eat the 2-year-old spit. But I guess the next question I want to ask everybody, starting off with President Rose, I know Dr. Ford already talked about it at the beginning, but who are 3 people in particular in your trusted medical advisor network that you can look to when discussing whether or not to take the vaccine?
Well, primary physicians, and that's my primary physician, that's number one. But also I have a couple of cousins who are both physicians. One's up in New York now, the other was in Memphis. And just consulting with their parents who are my peers to say, hey, what are they saying about this vaccine? What are they seeing? And then, reading, doing the research myself, and eventually, looking at other websites and publications about current trends and current information. Because remember, at first there was way more question marks than answers. And I think we're at a point where we do have a plethora of information that we can rely on in addition to those trusted sources initially.
And Dr. Ford, for you?
Yeah, like Dr. President Rose said, primary care physician. I try to make sure all of my doctors are African American. Dental, OBGYN, primary care, we are out there. Find someone you can trust. So definitely, my primary care physician. And then Dr. Anthony Fauci, he's not actually in my network. I don't think he knows my name, but I trust him. And it, the media tries to portray him like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. However, if you actually read his body of work, you look at all the years he's put into infectious diseases, he's proved himself over and over again through his research. So I strongly, trust Dr. Fauci. And then also North Carolina has a group of African-American doctors who call themselves the Sister Circle. And they very early on got out in the streets and started helping, the homeless and people who were not able to get vaccinated, or people who didn't have access to testing. So I work with them as well. So I trust their opinions. And it's a group of like psychologists and psychiatrists and neurosurgeons. So it's a really good group. It's a really powerful group, which they definitely enable me to get involved.
Right. And speaking of the sisters group, where they have the Black woman medical professionals throughout the country and stuff that network. Why do you all think that social activism in particular in the health field is important?
Well, I think it's I'm an activist, so I'm biased. I think that I think it's important for people who are in a field and understand the downside of not having the information. I think it's incumbent upon us to share that information in all fields. Medical, absolutely. We do voting rights and civil rights issues, but I think activism, most of my heroes have been activists in some manner. Du Bois, James Baldwin, Walter White, you name it. And so Hosea Williams, we have to, the medical field is just absolutely important because of the presumptions, as we mentioned earlier, about the syphilis study in Tuskegee. Because, people get a little information and then they kind of embellish it one way or the other to come up with a different story. The worst place to get medical information as well as tax information is the barbershop.
No, I heard it, President Rose. And for you, Dr. Ford?
Yeah, no, I think health activism is definitely essential because it can create the necessary conditions for people to control their own lives when others cannot or, will not act on their behalf, right? We have these health promotion agencies and the practitioners that they employ, right, to aid people with getting healthcare assistance. You also have professional organizations like the NAACP and researchers that provide education to the community so that you can make well-informed decisions on your own. And then, now we have this new wave of social media activism, which is a whole different way of like getting information out there to people who, work long hours or who are disabled and they're unable to participate physically, but they still want their voices heard and they still want policies to be changed. And, but yeah, no, I think it's very important.
Right. Okay. And I guess, to wrap things up, President Rose, what are you guys doing over there at the Atlanta NAACP? And Dr. Ford, where can the people find you? Where can people support you, et cetera, et cetera?
So sure, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, NAACP Atlanta. Our website is www.naacpatlanta.org. And we're happy to help, our missions. Our mission focus initially was voting rights, education, economic opportunity, and equal justice. We've added health and housing because all of those are really the effects of lower economic status. So that's how we get connected to this project here. Health, and we continue to do that. We take, people can go on our website, send us a message, send us a complaint, or send us some money.
Wait, President Rose, before Dr. Ford goes, is Dr. Ford one of those students that you were in class with that paid really close attention in science class?
Yes, she typifies those students. She's probably been called a nerd, whatever the new word is.
It definitely wasn't cool back then, but it's cool now. Right?
It's very cool.
Right. But go ahead, Dr. Ford.
Yeah, so I don't really have too much access, unfortunately, but you can find me on Instagram at dr.kford.
All right. Well, you guys heard it here first, Health IQ rolling out. Rashad Milligan, once again, this is Vaxxed Up with the Atlanta NAACP. Until next time, you all take care of yourselves and remain safe.
Thank you.